time you make a purchase with Bitcoin, be it a coffee or a car, it is treated as a taxable event, and you are expected to document it for tax purposes. Supporters of the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act believe this is unfeasible and have introduced new legislation to address those concerns. Joining us now with more is Jerry Brito, one of those supporters of the bill, executive director at Coin Center. Hello, Jerry. Thank you for joining us. So the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act has the support of U.S. Senators Pat Toomey as well as Kyrsten Sinema. What's it all about?
Well, very simply, what the bill would do is create an exemption from capital gains tax. So if I buy Bitcoin today for $23,000 and, tomorrow the price of Bitcoin has gone up to $24,000 and I use some of my Bitcoin to buy a cup of coffee, that is a taxable event because I have bought more coffee today than I could have bought with the same Bitcoin yesterday. And so I basically have to keep track of every transaction that I do, even if it's just a few cents of capital gain. And I have to record that, report that to the IRS, and pay capital gains on that little tiny transaction. Of course, nobody does that. And so I think today there's large noncompliance with that. And it also hinders the adoption of cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin or something else. And so what this law would do is create an exemption that is modeled after the foreign currency exemption that says, if you're having a transaction where the gain is under $50, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to record it, report it, or pay capital gains on that.
Interesting. So this is a new version of a similar bill. So what are the differences in this new version?
So this is a bill that Coin Center has been working on for coming on 6-7 years, right? So we've got introduced into the House the last 3 Congresses. It was first introduced by Representative Polis and Schweikert, and now it's currently being sponsored by Representative Del Bene and Schweikert. And each time the bill is introduced, there are tweaks made to it, depending on who's sponsoring it. Now we've gotten to the Senate, and we've gotten essentially the same bill introduced in the Senate. But of course, senators who introduce it, Senators Toomey and Sinema, they have their own changes they want to make to it. So the most significant change is in the House bill, the exemption is for, I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think it's $150 or $200, which matches the foreign currency exemption. In the Senate, it's much smaller, right? So at the end of the day, this bill is going to cost money, at least as far as Congress scores it, because it is going to be foregoing revenue that they might otherwise get without this exemption. And so I think what the folks in the Senate who, mindful of the deficit and all of that, they've made it smaller. That said, from our perspective, one of the main reasons that we are advocating for this bill is not for cups of coffee. Right? Very few people use Bitcoin to buy cups of coffee. But there is one thing that all cryptocurrency users use crypto for every single day, and that is for transaction fees, right? So if I send you some Bitcoin, I have to pay a miner. And if I run a smart contract on Ethereum, I have to pay a miner there as well. Those transaction fees are themselves dispositions of cryptocurrency, even though they may be incredibly tiny. And that's really one of the main drivers for our advocacy for this bill.
Mm-hmm. What's the support for this bill like? What's the likelihood of it passing, and could it possibly be an issue in these upcoming midterm elections?
So, what I'll say is this: the support for this bill has been growing, right? So if you think about it, it's been introduced the last 3 Congresses in the House, and now it's been also introduced in the Senate. So it's taken us 6 years, which is a very slow process that can be frustrating, how slow it feels. But we're getting more and more support for it. What are the prospects for it? Because this is a bill that costs money, because it's a bill that is giving a benefit to crypto users, I think it's going to be difficult. But I think the bill makes just completely eminent sense if folks want to promote a policy that promotes the development of cryptocurrency in the U.S. I doubt it'll be an issue in any particular race in the upcoming election. I don't think anybody, is going to be voting or running on this bill, but certainly it feeds into folks who are more or less crypto friendly.
You never know. Earlier today, we spoke with January Walker. She's running for the 4th Congressional District in Utah. She is pro-blockchain issues at least, so you never know.
Great.
Finally, one of the biggest complaints I hear about, these taxes is if you're earning Bitcoin, you have to pay on those vested gains. But then if you have a sudden drop in the price of Bitcoin, there's a cap on the losses you can declare. So, I mean, you have this big gap between, what you've had to pay in taxes and what you no longer have in terms of the value of that Bitcoin. Does that resolve this at all?
No, this does not address that. But, there are many issues. So it's so funny because, although it might surprise people, I tend to think that the regulatory environment in the U.S. is pretty good for cryptocurrency, with the massive exception of tax. In the tax area, the IRS and the Treasury tax policy has been very slow to give good guidance. And when they have given guidance, it's been pretty misunderstanding of the technology. And so in the case of what you're describing, this is an issue that miners and validators face, and that presently is being challenged in federal court. And Coin Center recently filed an amicus brief in that case, where miners today, when they receive cryptocurrency as a reward for their validation, as you say, they have to pay taxes upon receipt, when really it should be upon sale. And this is something that, this bill does not address, but it is currently being litigated in the federal court, and we're optimistic about that.